The SWAT captain was bleeding through his bandages, screaming commands at a trauma room full of doctors, and a young intern standing at the foot of his bed refused every single one. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood there, fingers resting lightly on the edge of his chart, and quietly shook her head. The room went silent. Someone was about to lose their career. The question was, who? The captain's name was etched into the hospital's intake form in aggressive block letters, underlined twice. He'd been brought in 40 minutes earlier after a botched entry on a meth lab raid. Shrapnel wounds across his torso, second-degree burns on his left forearm, possible internal bleeding. He was still wearing half his tactical vest when they wheeled him into the ER. He was also still giving orders. Get me morphine. Now. Not later. Now. The attending physician, a gray-haired man with permanent stress lines around his eyes, gestured toward the four-stand. Captain, we've already administered. I don't care what you've administered. I need to be functional in 3 hours. We have a secondary operation tonight, and I'm the only one who knows the entry pattern for the East Wing. So unless you want 6 officers walking into a kill box, you're going to stop wasting my time and get me something that works. The doctor opened his mouth, closed it, looked toward the trauma lead. That's when she walked in. Mid-20s, slim build, scrubs that looked 2 sizes too big, dark hair pulled into a bun, so tight it looked like it hurt. No makeup, no jewelry. She carried a tablet under one arm and a pen-light clipped to her chest pocket. Her ID badge said medical intern, week 11. She didn't knock. She didn't announce herself. She just moved to the foot of the bed, scanned the monitors, and started reading his chart without looking at him. The captain's eyes locked onto her immediately. Who the hell are you? She glanced up. Her expression didn't change. I'm assigned to your case. I didn't ask for an assignment. I asked who you are. Dr. Brennan asked me to oversee your stabilization. His jaw tightened. You're an intern. Yes. How old are you? Old enough to know you shouldn't be talking this much with a punctured lung. One of the nurses in the corner let out a short, strangled laugh and immediately turned it into a cough. The captain's face flushed. Excuse me. She didn't repeat herself. She just tilted her head slightly, like she was waiting for him to catch up. He didn't. Get Dr. Brennan in here. Now. He's in surgery. You'll have me for the next 90 minutes. Unacceptable. She clicked her pen once. Noted. Then she turned to the attending. Has anyone checked his oxygen saturation in the last 10 minutes? The attending looked thrown. Yes. 92%. Recheck it. It was just... Recheck it. He did. 87%. Her eyes didn't leave the monitor. Start him on high flow at 15 liters. And get a chest x-ray ordered. I want to see how much fluid he's holding before we push any more analgesia. The captain stared at her. I don't need a chest x-ray. I need to get out of this bed. You need to stop talking. You don't get to tell me. Your O2 just dropped 5 points in 10 minutes. That means you're either bleeding internally or your lungs collapsing. Either way, the more you yell, the faster you deteriorate. So no, you don't get to leave. You get to lie still and let people who know what they're doing keep you alive. The room went completely quiet. The captain stared at her like she'd just slapped him. She stared back. No hostility. No fear. Just patience. Finally, he let out a sharp breath through his nose and looked away. She turned back to the attending. Let's get that x-ray moving. And someone page RT. I want a respiratory therapist in here before he decides he's fine again. The attending nodded and stepped out. The intern stayed. She moved to the side of the bed and adjusted the oxygen cannula that had slipped slightly off the captain's nose. He flinched when her hand came near his face, then forced himself still. She didn't comment on it. How long have you been in pain? She asked quietly. Since the explosion. Before that. He looked at her. Really looked at her this time. What? You're favoring your left side even when you're sitting still. Your shoulders locked up. You've got tension lines around your jaw that aren't new. This isn't your first injury. So I'll ask again, How long have you been in pain? He didn't answer. She waited. 6 months. He said finally, maybe 8. Have you seen anyone for it? I don't have time. You have time to run a secondary op tonight, apparently. His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Not quite anger. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not. She made a note on her tablet, then glanced at the monitor again. His heart rate had dropped. Just slightly. But enough. You're scared, she said. It wasn't a question. He stiffened. I'm not. You are. And that's fine. Most people are when they can't control what's happening to their body. But the fear is making it worse. Your BP's spiking every time you try to assert control. You need to let go. I can't. Why not? Because if I do, people die. The words came out harder than he meant them to. He looked away, jaw working. She studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled up a stool and sat down. What's the operation tonight? She asked. Classified. How many officers? 6. How many of them have families? He looked at her sharply. All of them. And you think if you're not there, they won't make it. I know they won't. Because you're the only one who knows the layout. Yes. She nodded slowly. Then she leaned forward, elbows on her knees, and looked him in the eye. Captain, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to hear it. You are not going to that operation tonight. You're not going to be functional in 3 hours. You're barely functional now. And if you try to leave this hospital before we stabilize you, you will collapse. Possibly in front of your team. Possibly in a way that gets someone else killed trying to save you. His hands clenched into fists. So here's what's going to happen, she continued. You're going to stay in this bed. You're going to let us run the tests we need to run. You're going to let your second-in-command handle the op. And you're going to trust that the people around you are capable of doing their jobs, just like you're trusting me to do mine right now. I don't trust you. I know. You're an intern. I know that too. Then why the hell should I listen to you? She didn't blink. Because I'm the only person in this room who's telling you the truth. The X-ray came back 20 minutes later. Fluid in the left lung. Not a full collapse, but close. The attending looked at the scan, looked at the intern, and muttered something that sounded like an apology. She didn't acknowledge it. The captain, for his part, had gone quiet, not compliant. He still watched every person who entered the room like they might be a threat. But he'd stopped giving orders. The intern worked methodically. She rechecked his vitals every 8 minutes. She adjusted his foreflow. She asked questions in a low, steady voice that somehow didn't feel invasive. Do you have trouble sleeping? Sometimes. How often is sometimes? 4 or 5 nights a week. Do you wake up or never fall asleep? Both. Nightmares. He hesitated. Yeah. She made a note. Didn't elaborate, didn't offer platitudes. One of the nurses, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and 2 decades of ER experience, leaned over while prepping a new saline bag. You've got a good touch, she said quietly to the intern. The intern glanced up. Thank you. Where'd you do your undergraduate? State school. Local? No. The nurse waited for more. Didn't get it. She smiled anyway. Well, you're doing good work. The intern nodded once and went back to her tablet. The captain watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. You don't talk much, he said. Not unless I need to. Why? Because most of the time, listening works better. You always as calm. No. When aren't you? She looked at him. Really looked at him. And for just a second, something shifted in her expression. It wasn't emotion, exactly. It was recognition. When I can't help, she said quietly. He didn't know what to say to that. She turned back to the monitor. 30 minutes later, the double doors of the trauma bay burst open. A man in an expensive suit and a hospital administrator's badge strode in, trailed by 2 other SWAT officers still in partial gear. The man's face was red, his voice already raised. Where is he? The attending stepped forward. Sir, you can't. I'm Deputy Chief Rawlings. That's my captain. I need to speak with him. Now. The intern didn't move from her position, beside the bed. She didn't even look up. Rawlings' eyes landed on the captain. Jesus, Michael, what the hell happened? The captain's expression hardened. Delayed fuse. Took out half the entry team. How bad? Rodriguez has a broken arm. Klein's got a concussion. He gestured vaguely at himself. Here, we need you back. I know. The secondary op is in 2 hours. We've already pushed it once. If we don't move tonight, we lose the window. I know. Rawlings stepped closer. Then get up. The intern's voice cut through the room. He's not going anywhere. Every head turned toward her. Rawlings looked her up and down. Took in the scrubs. The badge. The age. Who are you? The physician currently responsible for his care. You're a student. Intern. And yes. Where's the actual doctor? In surgery. Then get someone else. No. Rawlings' face flushed darker. Excuse me? I said no. He's not stable. He's not cleared. And he's not leaving this room until I say otherwise. The captain sat up slightly. Doc. Lie down. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. He lay back down. Rawlings stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Do you have any idea what's at stake here? Yes. His life. There are 6 officers about to walk into a structure we haven't fully cleared. If he's not there to coordinate, then someone else coordinates. There's no one else. Then you delay. We can't. Then you accept the risk. But you don't get to kill him to avoid it. The room went dead silent. One of the SWAT officers behind Rawlings, a younger guy with shaved head and a poorly concealed smirk, let out a low whistle. Damn. Rawlings' jaw clenched. You have no authority to make that call. Actually, I do. He's my patient. And until he's cleared by a supervising physician, I'm the one who decides when he leaves. I'll have your supervising physician override you. Good luck. He's in hour 3 of a 7-hour bypass surgery. Rawlings turned to the attending. You. Override her. The attending looked at the intern, looked at the monitors, looked at the x-rays still up on the light board. Then he looked back at Rawlings. I can't. She's right. Rawlings' hands curled into fists. He turned back to the captain. Michael, tell her. The captain looked at the intern. She met his eyes. Didn't flinch. He exhaled slowly. Stand down, Patrick. Rawlings froze. What? She's right. I'm not going. You don't mean that. I do. Michael. I said stand down. The deputy chief stared at him for a long, furious moment. Then he turned on his heel and walked out, the SWAT officers trailing behind him. The doors swung shut. The captain closed his eyes. The intern made another note on her tablet. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. You're still not out of the woods. An hour passed. The captain drifted in and out of sleep. The pain meds were finally working. His oxygen level stabilized. The fluid in his lung hadn't worsened. The intern stayed. She didn't have to. Her shift had technically ended 20 minutes ago. But she sat in the corner of the room, tablet on her lap, reviewing his chart for the 4th time. One of the older nurses came by to check the 4. You should go home, she said gently. I will. When he's stable. He is stable. The intern glanced at the monitor. Not yet. The nurse followed her gaze. Everything looked normal. But she'd been doing this long enough to trust a gut feeling when she saw one. She didn't push. 10 minutes later, the monitor started beeping. The captain's heart rate spiked. His oxygen dropped. His blood pressure bottomed out. The intern was on her feet before the alarm finished its first cycle. He's crashing. Get me a crash cart. Now. The attending ran in from the hallway. What happened? Internal bleed. It just let go. How do you move? She didn't wait for permission. She tilted the bed back, checked his airway, started manual compressions while the attending got the paddles ready. Her hands moved with perfect rhythm. No hesitation. No panic. She'd done this before. Not in a classroom. Not in a simulation. In the field, they got him back. It took 4 minutes. 2 shocks, and a unit O negative, but they got him back. The attending was breathing hard, hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline. The nurses were resetting equipment. The intern was checking the captain's pupils with her penlight, watching for signs of brain damage from the oxygen loss. He blinked up at her, confused and groggy. "What happened?" "You arrested. You're stable now." "How long was I out?" "For minutes." Did I die?" "Technically, but we brought you back." He stared at her. "You brought me back." "We all did." "No." His voice was hoarse. "You did. I felt it. Your hands." She didn't respond. He closed his eyes. "Who are you?" Before she could answer, the door opened. A doctor. Brennan walked in, 60 years old, chief of trauma surgery, 25 years of ER experience. He looked exhausted. "I heard we had some excitement." The attending nodded. "He arrested." She caught it before the monitors did. Brennan looked at the intern, then at the chart, then back at her. "Good work, Captain." The room froze. The captain's eyes snapped open. "What?" Brennan frowned. "Did I say something wrong?" The attending was staring at the intern. "Did he just call you?" "It's fine," she said quickly. "No, it's not." Brennan looked around the room, suddenly aware that he'd said something he shouldn't have. "Wait, you didn't tell them?" She didn't answer. The captain sat up too fast and winced and stared at her. "Captain?" Brennan sighed, pulled a file from under his arm, handed it to the attending. She didn't want anyone to know, said it would complicate things. "But if we're doing formal introductions." He gestured to the intern. "Meet Captain Elaine Merrick, Army Trauma, 75th Ranger Regiment, 3 tours, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star, certified in field surgery, battlefield triage, and high-threat medical evacuation." The attending's mouth fell open. The captain just stared. Brennan continued. "She left active duty 18 months ago and enrolled in medical school. I recruited her personally. She's not technically an intern. She's a fellow. But she wanted to restart from the ground up, relearn everything in a civilian context." He looked at her, though I'm starting to think that was a waste of time. The intern, Captain Merrick, finally looked up. "It wasn't. You just saved a man's life with nothing but a penlight and a hunch. That's not unusual." "It is here." She didn't argue. She just stood there, arms at her sides, looking like she wanted to disappear. The SWAT captain was still staring at her. "You were a ranger." "Yes." "And you didn't say anything." "It wasn't relevant. I called you intern." "You weren't wrong. I dismissed you. You were scared. People do that." He let out a sharp breath, shook his head. I don't understand." She met his eyes. "You don't have to." Brennan cleared his throat. "I'll leave you two to talk. Captain Merrick, I'll see you tomorrow. Try to go home at some point." He left. The attending followed, still looking dazed. The nurses filtered out one by one, whispering to each other. And then it was just the two of them, the SWAT captain and the ranger. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was quieter than before. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it wouldn't have changed anything. It would have changed everything. No, it would have changed how you saw me, not how I did my job." He looked down at his hands. "You let me yell at you. You needed to yell at someone. You could have pulled rank. I'm not your rank anymore. I'm your doctor." "That's not." He stopped. Started again. "You knew, didn't you? What I was feeling. The fear. The control. You knew." "Yes." "Because you've been there." "Yes." "How bad was it?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down on the stool again, hands folded in her lap. "Kandahar, 2019. Convoy hit an IED. 3 of my guys went down. I was the only medic in range. No air support. No backup. Just me and a field kit. Did they make it?" "2 of them did." "And the third?" She didn't answer. He nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." "So am I." They sat in the silence. Finally, he let out a long breath. I'm an idiot. No, you're hurt. There's a difference. I treated you like you didn't know what you were doing. You treated me like an intern. I was dressed like an intern. It was a reasonable assumption. It was disrespectful. It was human. He looked at her. You're too forgiving. No, I just know what it's like to be on the other side. Of what? Of thinking you're the only one who can save people. He flinched. She leaned forward. Captain, you're good at your job. I can tell. But you're also killing yourself trying to do it alone. And that doesn't make you strong. It makes you a liability. I don't know how to stop. You start by trusting the people around you. You start by letting someone else carry the weight for once. And if they can't, then you were never as alone as you thought you were. He closed his eyes. She stood. Get some rest. I'll check on you in a few hours. Will you be here? Yes. Why? She paused at the door. Look back at him. Because I know what it's like to crash. And I know what it's like when someone stays. Then she walked out. 3 days later, the captain was discharged. His second-in-command had run the operation. It went flawlessly. No casualties. Full recovery of evidence. The suspect in custody. The captain read the report from his hospital bed and cried. Not because it failed. Because it didn't. Because he wasn't irreplaceable. Because he'd been so afraid of not being needed that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. Captain Merrick checked on him one last time before he left. How are you feeling? She asked. Lighter, he said. She smiled. Good. I owe you an apology. No, you don't. I do. For how I treated you. For what I assumed. Captain, she said gently, the strongest people I've ever met didn't announce themselves. They didn't need to. They just showed up, did the work, and left quietly. You don't owe me an apology. You just owe yourself the chance to be one of them. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. She shook it. Thank you, he said. You're welcome. And then she left. No applause. No ceremony. No fanfare. Just a woman in scrubs walking back to her next patient. Because that's what real authority looks like. It doesn't demand to be seen. It just does the work. Strength doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need the title, the uniform, or the introduction. It just shows up, does what needs to be done, and walks away before you even realize you were saved. The loudest voice in the room is almost never the strongest. The person who has to prove their authority usually doesn't have any. And the ones who actually save you, they rarely tell you who they are until it's already over. If you believe quiet competence will always outlast loud arrogance, drop a comment below with someone in your life who showed you strength without ever saying a word. Let's honor the people who do the work in silence. And if this story reminded you that real power doesn't need a spotlight, hit subscribe, because there are more stories like this. Stories about people who changed everything without ever asking for credit. See you in the next one.